In this episode, we take a deeper look at Death Valley.
Hi, welcome to Button Shy Deep Dive, where we review games from Button Shy Games catalog. I'm Ian, I'm the narrative lead at Button Shy Games.
And I'm Jason. I started Button Shy Games. I forgot what I was going to say.
And today we're talking about Death Valley. Death Valley is a push-your-luck game for 1 to 2 players that takes those players deep into the real-life desert location of Death Valley, California. During its 15-minute playtime, they must collect memories of their travels using their journey and scrapbook rows, while being careful not to gather too many hazards. Designed by Kevin Ellenburg, Death Valley was a top 3 finalist in Button Shy's Real Life Location Design Challenge in 2019. With illustrations by Fachri Maulana, it was subsequently published in 2021. It funded on Kickstarter in March of 2021 with 3,601 backers and a total funding amount of $80,655. As of this recording, on October 1st, 2024, Death Valley has an overall rank of 3,222 on BoardGameGeek with an average rating of 6.8. All right, so that's the nuts and bolts of Death Valley. But of course, we like to distill things to their purest essence in a segment we call 5 words. So, how would you describe Death Valley in 5 words?
So I came prepared this time, just to not eat up airtime with all my ums. Oh, that's good. I have 2 of them.
Oh, perfect. That covers
I'll do one
me,
and then come back to my other one after you.
Okay.
Pushing luck with pretty pictures.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, pushing luck with pretty pictures.
It was hard to get that into 5 words, but pushing luck.
Yeah,
with
I like
pictures.
It.
All right, you're up.
So I actually did write it down, thankfully.
Good.
Past me was smarter than I thought. I have cherish memories and avoid hazards.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, simple.
Yeah.
You know.
My second one works in 2 ways, thematically and mechanically, and it's just, is it hot in here?
Ooh, okay.
It's just like the game is like, I'm sweating from the game, sweating from the theme. In here is a little tricky, but
yeah. I like it. That's a that's a fun take on it. But I really like your first one maybe the most, because it really gets to do that perfect blend.
Both things. Like, the pictures are everything. Like, just the visuals of this game are what draws somebody to it. It draws your eye to it. It keeps you around. It really embodies the actual theme. Like, they're all real life locations, but done in a somewhat fantastical style.
Yeah.
And
really
pushing luck
gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly. And then pushing luck is just the core of it,
Yeah.
With a little bit of engine building and, all that kind of fun stuff.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ellenburg, designer of Death Valley, discussing what inspired the game. So, back in November of 2019, Button Shy ran a contest to design an 18-card game based on a real-life location. Now, I was thinking through places I've been. First thought was Las Vegas, blackjack. Let's make an 18-card game where if you collect too many cards of the same type, you bust. You will shuffle those cards back in the deck, so they'll come back later, and that adds some longevity to the 18-card format. Problem was, there are just so many Las Vegas games, and I'd rather have a location that's naturally dangerous. So all the cards can represent cool sights you can see there, but also the dangers you'll face as you explore them. Then I remembered that on that same family trip I did to Las Vegas, we did a road trip to Death Valley National Park. And that was a gorgeous place with lots of interesting rock formations to explore, but also it was so hot. And it's actually one of the more dangerous national parks to visit because of that intense desert heat. And you have to stay hydrated and rest while you're exploring that place, especially in the summer. There are also all of these other natural dangers there, like the rock formations, being rough terrain to explore, the risk of a flash flood happening while you're exploring through a narrow canyon, and all the classic desert predators like rattlesnakes, scorpions, coyotes. Once I thought of that Death Valley theme, the rest of the game just naturally came together very quickly. And I loved having the rest mechanic where you have to stop and take a break, drink some water before continuing to explore. I also love being able to, like how Wingspan does for birds, focus on a specific theme and provide lots of cool, fun specs about the different sites you can explore there.
Because the illustrator for this, Fachri, has gone on to do several Button Shy games now. So Wild Tales and then also Battle Crest doing the landmarks there. So how did you find Fachri? Because
I wish I knew the name of the game, but he worked on a role-playing game that before, when we were looking for an artist for Death Valley, or we were just looking for an artist in general, I'd found the role-playing game he did. It was like a Kickstarter with 2 role-playing games, and I wish I could remember the title. One of them might have been role-playing, one of them might have been not. But it was the exact same thing you see in Death Valley. Just those incredible landscapes, incredible colors, and like detailed yet not. Like his stuff's very abstract, but has detail.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. And that was one of those, like, you find people that work on games at times and they're like the dream person to work with.
Yes.
Him, Quanchai, these people that you see their games and that's where you first find out about them is from other board games. And there's a couple others that we've kind of seen, and their styles are so iconic. And a lot of times we are able to work with them, actually. So like I was going to say we aren't, but like Quanchai we've now worked with, and oh my God, there's one more that it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember. But it happens from time to time where those opportunities do become available. And I think we've got a little bit of a name for ourselves now, that it's not just somebody they never heard of reaching out. They may have heard of us or a game we've done or somebody we've worked with or any of the, like, we've got a lot of angles we can kind of hit. But there's some where I've wanted to work with them and they just, sorry, I'm unavailable, or I sort of work exclusively with this publisher or this designer or whatever. So this one worked out. And yeah, we've done a lot with him since. We've done more Death Valley. What else did he do? He worked on the backgrounds in Wild Tales. Yeah. Like all the like scenery in that. He did all of our locations for Battle Crest, which is great. That's super stylized and has set a tone for that world, which is an interesting one because it has, both of those have multiple artists on them. And he did the backgrounds and the location work, and someone else does the character work. And he's even working on something now for us that we have not shared, that maybe I'll share a screenshot of a little sketch as we go. But yeah, it's been great working with him. Just super professional and super he's like, I'm available for 2 weeks in December. Do you want to book them? Yes.
Oh, nice.
Like, I don't even know if we have a game yet, but yes.
Yeah, but yes, absolutely.
But yeah, we don't always get that level of, like, I think he's a full-time working artist and just basically, his schedule is his work schedule. So you don't always see that kind of like locked in commitment to a time. Everybody's a little different, and sometimes you don't know what you're getting, and sometimes it's super strict like that. But that's been great.
Hello, I am Fachri Maulana. I am the illustrator for the Banshai game Death Valley. So Jason reached out to me around spring or summer 2020 after seeing my work in another game published by an Australian game publisher designer, Story Brewers Role Playing. And Jason asked me to Jason talked to me about this project, about Death Valley, and he needed someone to illustrate different sceneries from Death Valley. and I thought it was a really cool project. I actually always wanted to be an environment or concept artist before working mostly in publishing for books, magazines, and eventually games, because I really like drawing landscape sceneries, natural or man-made, and I thought this game, Death Valley, was the perfect opportunity to do that.
I'm going to share this. It's a game that we haven't even announced the game. So there's not a lot to even say as far as the title goes. But
Man,
it's a
I'm
game
psyched.
designed. I'll give you a couple hints. It's a game designed by Dustin and Milan.
Oh, okay.
So they have designed a lot of stuff before, Battlecrest and everything else. Some with artwork by Fachri. Fachri. I don't know how to say his name.
I don't either. I've been doing terrible with it.
But here's a little piece of
Oh man,
artwork.
that looks awesome.
So what he's doing here is interesting. It's a I'll describe it if you're listening and not watching. It's like a volcano, but he has a very specific like 3-tone color artwork to it where he's using black as like a main color, which is really interesting, and then white and then the blue as like accents, and it's a different style than what you see in Death Valley, which is it's still a limited color palette, and I feel like that's one of his strong suits is a limited color palette, but
Yeah.
they definitely have a lot more color going on in those.
Yeah, and I mean the tone of that, like the whole game just feels so consistent, and it has this like lovely warm and cool at the same time feel
Yeah, you're
to it.
right.
It
Yeah,
just really feels so perfect for that game. Not to discredit his work on the other games, which are it's all phenomenal.
yeah,
But that game
but
really feels like
it is
the
very
perfect.
special. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm glad it worked out because it ends up being, I think, one of the most gorgeous of Button Shy's games on the table. And it
Agreed.
has that really great sort of painterly style. It also really captures the sort of thematic element, not just of like you're traveling through Death Valley, but you're specifically trying to remember your trip through Death Valley.
Yeah, it feels like we didn't lean too far on like these are like photographs in like a journal. Like we touch
Yeah.
on that a little bit, but you could have went with like graphic design, like way in on that. And we
Yes.
decided, no, let's let that be more of like in the player's eye and things like that,
Yeah.
and just have these super wide shots that, they go right off the card. Like it's not always that, we end up going through like there's no borders or anything. So it's
Yeah.
these are mostly those images. And
Yes.
then a bunch of flavor. So
Yeah.
like this card has, I mean, very little. There's an ability and a value, which the value is even unnecessary. It's just a reminder of how many are in the deck. The icon. So it was a perfect project to work with, his strengths on, because so there's so little is necessary for data on the card. Um, you can blow out those pieces of art and really make them shine in a way that you don't always have that kind of room left when you're designing a game. A lot of times the game eats up the card, and this time it was the opposite, and it doesn't feel that way. It's not like a card that just has a number and a suit in the corner and nothing else, and you can fill it with art. Like there's still quite a bit going on, but it's loaded with art.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked so much about the illustrations, but like realistically, it's a very clean, clever, elegant way to do a game like that. And
Yeah,
it's a testament to Kevin for providing like it's just a perfect synergy. Like the
it
game
is.
works perfectly for the art works perfectly for the game, which I think Button Shy does more often than not, but it does feel like this one
It
was
doesn't always.
really,
Yeah, it's and sometimes we do, but it takes a lot to get there. Like
yeah,
it doesn't feel that way in the beginning, and then after development or product development and chipping away at things, it can get there. And this is like Kevin's exact prototype with better art, like
yeah,
without photographs is essentially what it is.
yeah. That's which is, I mean, super cool.
Hey everyone, this is Sir Thecos. As a big fan of the button shy games and solo gaming in general, I've gotten to know Death Valley a few years ago. It's an amazing push your luck game that has few rules and plays quickly, but it's full of interesting decisions. My most favorite aspect probably is the fact that you have two rows where you place cards in the course of the game, your journey at the top and the scrapbook at the bottom. While the cards in your scrapbook are safe and can't be lost due to bad luck, they still contribute to the maximum of 2 symbols you can have for each type. So this is essentially a mechanism that saves some cards you want to keep for scoring, but also introduces more risks for you. Such a simple but amazing idea. But of course, that's not the only thing I love about the game. If you'd like to see more reasons why I love the game as well as its sequel and expansion, check out the videos I've released on my channel. I'll see you there. Take care everyone, stay safe, and cheers.
And we kind of talked about this, but I'm gonna ask anyway, because it's interesting that Death Valley didn't have like a strongly established designer, the way that we would think of like the Simply Solo games have Scott Alms.
Sure.
And the illustrator also was not super well known, not like a Quanchai type, right? And yet the crowdfund on this did really surprisingly well, I think. It ended up being, I think, 80,000
80 something, yeah.
Which we talked in an earlier episode about Sprawlopolis and how that, $100,000 Kickstarter campaign changed your business.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, on a game like this, what factors do you think kind of made this one such a successful, I think, in my opinion, crowdfund?
Yeah, this is what we call like a new game, right? So we do a lot of kickstarting of series. You'll see more of the Opolis games. You'll see more of the Simply Solo. You'll see a new Rove, which is part of a series, and things like that. But we don't kickstart a ton of games that are just new straight off the bat. A lot of times they'll find a different start, maybe through our club or whatever, and kind of eke their way out. And then eventually, as they become more established or have a sequel or whatever, they might come on Kickstarter. But this one, we went straight to Kickstarter with. And I strongly feel that visuals are like 60% of your sale, that it doesn't matter even how your game plays, as long as there's no like keywords out there that people just hate, like dexterity or take that or whatever. Even though this has a touch of that take that in the one mode. I think the visuals carry a lot of the weight of your sale. Then people, they click on it first because it looks awesome. It looks really nice, and it might not even just be illustrations. Sometimes it's just a tables, your footprint on the table, like how cool the game looks, how things are spread out, your bits, your components, whatever. It's not always just illustrations, but illustrations can carry a lot of weight in your marketing images. So I think this was like, it was like the whole package, right? So it's like the artwork on the cards is really nice. The theme is something people know. Like location themes are really cool because everybody kind of knows them, but nobody's like dove all the way in on them, right? So like this dives in on Death Valley. So if you are interested in Death Valley, that's a bonus. If you don't know a lot about Death Valley, it's a bonus, and if you don't like Death Valley, then we lost you. But I think
but maybe you're still there for the art or the gameplay, like even without
you're there to see if what you don't like about it is expressed in the game. But I do think that like there is a little like a mysticism of like a real life location game, of just seeing like deeper into that location. So I think it had that going for it. I think this logo is really good. Like the logo, like our logos are our entire cover technically. Like our whole wallet is the logo, and Brian Fisher did this one, and it's really good. Like it captures just, it's a little like whimsical and like just captures everything, and I think that was good. And I think that it being a 2-player game with a solo mode straight off the bat was a strong selling point to Kickstarter backers at that time, and almost at any time. But that, I think the player count was really good. It was great for it. Solo only does well for us. 2-player only with no solo is a little, is a little tough. 2 to 4 player with no solo is a little less tough. But 1 to 2 players straight out of the wallet is pretty solid. So I think it had all that going for it. And then once you start looking at the game, the footprint is awesome. Like the way that
Yes.
the cards lay out on the table, the way that you've got your 2 lines, your scrapbook and your
Journey.
thank you.
Mhm.
All of that was
I
represented
think.
nicely, and I think it is. That's right. And I think all that starts to validate the purchase or the click or what and kind of led us to those big numbers. I don't think we had a ton of reviews. I don't think we did anything like out of the ordinary with the campaign. It just looked well. It went over well, and it did great. You can't
Yeah, I
complain.
mean, sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle, and there isn't necessarily one thing. It's just a bunch of really good things. I mean,
Yeah,
it really is like it's a cool theme. It's great art. It's a great game, like mechanically. It's accessible in a way that maybe some other games aren't. Like Push Your Luck,
yeah.
I find, is a very accessible mechanic. It's
That's
easy to
a
teach to people.
that's a good point. And we just had a discussion on Discord about casual audiences and like lots of text on cards. And it's
Yeah,
interesting because this one has like some of it is a lot of text. Some of the abilities are wordy because there's nothing else going on. There's just a
yeah,
suit icon and the number of those in the deck. So those wordy cards do well with a casual audience, which sort of baffles me, but I'm sort of starting to understand it. And it's like, the rules don't have to be too long if it's on the card, which is an
hmm,
interesting thought. I
yeah,
can jump right into this game if the majority of the rules are on the cards and I only see 1/5 of those throughout the whole game. There's a lot of rules I can ignore. Is
yeah,
like, is a mindset that I'm starting to kind of like try to understand. But just looking at these cards, they have that like not a lot going on, but here's what makes this card special, and here's how this
yeah,
card breaks the rules, which is a, special abilities on cards or powers on cards or whatever. All they do is break rules, and they
yeah,
can be awesome, and that's like the entirety of this game.
yeah,
It's an icon and a rule and a breaking rule on the card. So I do think all of that sort of hits that casual level in some interesting way that probably caught some people that we might not have caught otherwise.
yeah. And I think when I think about like lots of ability text on cards, one of the things is that when it's open information, you can play with somebody and just ask in a way
Yeah,
that
that's
like when
true.
you're playing a really competitive game and you've got your hand of cards and each one's a novel, you have no, you have to like, well, I don't want to give away my strategy, but
And yeah, at that end, when you have a handful of cards, you need to evaluate all of them. And in this
yes,
game, you're evaluating one card.
it's one card at
So,
a time.
while that doesn't contribute to the sale so much, I mean, it might have been a little bit in our marketing pitches. It's just here's the card you're dealing with. Um, Once it's in play, like that's very obvious that here's your card information and this is what you're dealing with, and you're not assessing 3 different cards, 5 different cards in your hand,
Hmm.
deciding which one am I going to do and what's the impact of every one of these. The decision space is small but impactful,
Yes,
which I think goes to the long-term sales of this more than any initial sales.
yeah.
Like that speaks to why it still does well today.
Yeah, I mean it does. It keeps going. I see people talk about it fairly regularly. It really is just like it hits that line so well, um,
Yeah.
in a way that isn't immediately obvious at first glance, but as soon as you like see the appeal that it has, it's like, oh yeah, this really is like a total package.
Yeah, this
Um,
one's done well even outside of us. Like we've licensed it to is it Cosmos? Somebody took it in Europe and printed not a million copies, but compared to us, it feels like a million copies. A
yeah,
boxed version of it in a couple languages, maybe. Um, it's just like a very large quantity.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that, it's not just our audience,
And that's
it's out
extra
there.
fascinating because it's like I think of Death Valley as like a very American place,
Yeah.
and to think of it selling so well in Europe is just like,
Well,
oh, that's
think
cool.
about, I'll tell you the reason that I thought about that too. And then I was like, oh, I kind of want to play those games about European places that I know nothing about. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, yeah, that's true.
I was thinking about that as we were like trying to license it and anything like that. Like there's certain games where you publish them here in the US and you have some international customers and whatever. They're going to buy your games. They know of your games anyway, and they're buying it because they follow you or they like the game. But then I think of like, we're going to push this to our international partners like Madigo in France and, all these different people that we work with in all these different countries. And there's certain games that you just eliminate off the bat. You've got one that's about language or words or something, and it's like our
Yeah.
language is different than theirs. It's probably going to need a ton of work. It's
Yeah.
not going to work. Then you think of ones like we did Cow Tiger Santa Claus forever ago, and it's just a road trip game with things that you see on the road. But they're things that you see on the road in America
Right.
that may not exist in other countries. Like a couple things that were very specific. I can't remember, but like for example, like a yellow school bus. Let's say that yellow school buses don't exist somewhere else, or like porta pot. Porta pot is called different things even in the U.S. So offering that game internationally would probably require some rework just to fit things that they're going to see, especially because things are on a small or a easy, medium, and hard difficulty. That something hard here might be very easy somewhere else.
Yes.
So something like that it's just too much work for them to license. They need to get a new artist. They need to kind of start over. It kind of eliminates a lot of the point in like licensing a game. So Death Valley was one where initially it was like, is this one weird? Like, are people going to want this in a different language? Like, is their vision of, California desert, like, do they even know it exists? Or do they just hate America? Like, what is it? Like, it's really interesting. And I think that it's a dangerous zone that looks beautiful,
Yeah.
translates anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that works. And then you may have heard of it just in passing, or you may be interested in reading some of the little facts about it, which is about as educational as we get in any game.
It's
This
neat.
one,
Yeah, it's a really neat thing. I love that
it is
there is
like,
that educational aspect. It's not strong, but it's there.
it's not strong, and I think it's like it could have gone really badly. Like it's the
Yeah.
kind of thing where if you lean a little too far into it, it feels uncool. And I think we kept the font small enough that it feels cool. And like, there's a couple choices we made that I think it still feels cool. It's kind of hanging off the page. Like, I think just a little more in your face, and like it might have shifted the other way.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of, well, and again, it's just, it's not obtrusive. There's a lot of games now that are more like educational, natural themed, especially.
Yep.
And sometimes it's like, it's just too much. It starts to feel
Agreed.
like this is an educational lecture with a
Yeah.
game as well. But this is so elegant in every respect that it
Yeah,
just, it feels
it's a tough
like,
line because
yeah.
there's a great market for educational games, but if you're outside of that market, it's trouble for your market. Where like we won't hit anybody that has any, we aren't going to hit teachers, we aren't going to hit students, we aren't going to hit gift shops. Although I believe this is one of the ones where Kevin, I think Kevin's reached out to me about getting this in gift shops multiple times. There's a couple games where we've talked to the designers about getting in gift shops where it's just completely out of, it's like we might as well be trying to put it in a classroom. Like it's just,
Right.
it's a whole
just
different
not your
market for
thing.
us.
Yeah.
But it's a great idea. Like if it was there, it should be there. Like
It should be there. Yeah.
it should be there. It's just, are they willing to pay, what are they going to value this at? I think they're going to value it at like $3, you know, like just not knowing like board games and, you know,
Yeah.
And yeah, so, but I do think there's a borderline where somebody who's not in that educational field can lean a little too educational, and it can be problematic. We try to avoid it because we can't hit those people. And some people, like Genius Games, absolutely hit those people, you know, and can do a very good job with it. But I think that's a tough market.
It's like, harder, yeah.
It's one of those ones where like someone says, "Oh, I got this somewhat educational game and I want to put it on Kickstarter," and I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's a hard one. It's really tough.
It is. It's a hard line. And I've played some good educational games, and I've played some really bad ones where it's just like, you know, it's a lecture.
I've designed a couple good and bad ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Just for, like, I've had like people have come to me and asked me, like teachers and stuff, like, can you design a game for my course or my class or whatever? And by the time we're done, I'm just like, oh, I don't know. Like, this isn't fun or educational.
Right, exactly.
Like, we lost on both ends.
Yeah.
Like, we made so many compromises. Like, I made compromises to make it less fun to hit what you wanted, and you made compromises to make it less educational to hit what I wanted. In the end, it was just bad.
Yeah. And it's a tricky balance, and it also stems from the fact that many game designers are not educators, and vice versa. Like, they're not wholly different skill sets, but you come at it from a completely different
for
angle.
Sure. Yeah.
And I do see educators who are game designers, and I trust that their stuff can hit that line.
Yeah, they've got like a foot in the door of what they're looking for. It's like like an adult designing a game for children, and it's like you design what you think children would like.
Yes,
but you design what you think you would like, you know, as a child. It's like such a very hard thing to cross, and thankfully we just kind of dipped it a little bit in there on this game.
Yeah,
and kept it cool.
And I will say the educational piece is very light, but it also is just, it feels like flavor text. Like,
I was gonna say, it's like flavor text.
You know, like, you have entered this area and now you must know. It's just like, here's casually a little like nice description.
Here, I'll read one. Hopefully I pick a good one.
Yeah, that might evoke it better than my description.
Furnace Creek. Famous for having the world's lowest elevation golf course, this oasis offers both adventure and relaxation. It's almost like selling it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. Like, it's really elegant. Did Kevin write those?
Kevin initially wrote them, and I believe Michael Lee touched them up or potentially rewrote some.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kevin gave us all of it. And like, our dev process is so different nowadays, right? I don't know if they're all true. Like, there's a chance, like, I don't think anybody fact checked anything. Like, I trusted it, and but nowadays we probably would fact check it all and probably run it through something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a different time back then.
Yeah,
and Michael Lee may have fact checked all of them, knowing how he works on things. You know?
Yeah, knowing him, and Kevin both. Like, neither one of them are, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was just trust on my end, you know, trust the people you work with, but also maybe fact check them.
Well, it could have been, like, those are two trustworthy people who I believe did their due diligence.
Badwater Basin, there are 50,000 bodies floating at the top of it. You know, I'm sure we would have questioned that one.
Yeah, but they do. There's a nice, like, they are educational. But they are also evocative and
yeah, they're interesting
as flavor text. And you know, that as somebody who reads flavor text both personally and professionally, you know,
I can't wait till the episode where we can get into flavor text in a good way.
Yeah,
you know my feelings on it. Battlecrest would be a good one. Probably something that you wrote the flavor text. Battlecrest.
Yeah, I'll have a lot. Actually, I won't have anything to say. I'll just be like, yeah, I wrote that. You know, like, what else do you say?
And mine is, I never read that.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
extent of my flavor text conversation. It's
Oh
awful.
man. Um, it is very funny that my entire job is just something you won't won't read and
I
won't
won't
enjoy.
recognize.
Which is why I'm now hosting a podcast.
So funny.
Hi, my name is Vince Tagle. I'm the playtesting lead for Button Shy Games. What that means is I help run the playtest for games that are coming out. So me and a group of testers will go through the game, make sure the mechanics are sound, make sure the scoring is okay, all that fun stuff. I first came across Death Valley as a playtester. My wife and I really liked it. We really liked the push-luck aspect of it and the theme too. She has lots of fond memories of Death Valley, and we went once camping there and had a good time there. But we really prefer Death Valley 2 more, mainly because of the increased player interactions and more risk versus reward abilities. Cards like Roadrunners, Ventifact Ridge, and Last Chance Range. We really liked how we could, mess with each other's scrapbooks and journeys, or try to get more points at the end of the game, with more at risk of busting or losing the game with Last Chance Ridge.
So I wanted to get back to one last thing about Death Valley, and specifically about the gameplay. We've talked really about how elegant it is. There's one question that I'm interested in. So something that's really unusual to me about Death Valley is that it comes with two different modes. There's sort of like the regular basic mode where you are just kind of playing your stuff and nobody can mess with you. And then there's the Backseat Driver variant, which, first off, great title. But you can add cards to the other player's tableau.
Yep.
And I'm so curious because that feels like something that Button Shy would now kind of, polish off that rough edge
Develop
of having
out.
this extra variant that's just kind of in there. And I will say a lot of people like the Backseat Driver variant. I've never played that way. It's just not like I like to build my own little thing,
Yep.
But I'm really curious about how that came about and, whether there was talk about, getting rid of it or.
Yeah. So this is the second game that I can think of this on. And the other one was Stew. In Stew, there are two variants of like the timing of when you can call Stew. One is a little more casual. The other one's a little more chaotic. And in this one, it's kind of the same thing. It's one is a little more casual. One is a little more chaotic. We were kickstarting the game and doing late tests, and it was probably like 3 days before the campaign, and it was Jamie Thole, who we've worked with now on Mysticana, and he's working on some development for us and all, and I think he played it and he said, and it didn't have the two variants at the time, it was just the Backseat Driver, and he said, this is too aggressive. This is too aggressive for me, I will never play it. And I took that, I'd already been talking to him about design stuff, so I knew he had a good sense of, not just as a game player, but as a designer. And I took it pretty seriously and thought, you know what? I think you're right. I think it's this game about this, area that's very peaceful, but also very dangerous. And I think that the peaceful was missing in that Backseat Driver variant, where, whatever, multiplayer solitaire, whatever it is, like that felt like the right tone for this game as far as like gameplay style, because there's already dangerous stuff going on. It's just not another player just kind of messing with you. So I brought that to Kevin, but it was very late in the process. So nowadays that probably would have came up a lot earlier. We would have discussed it, figured out a path forward. But a lot of times that's how we feel, but that's not how the designer feels.
Yeah.
And we sort of owe it to the designer to hear them out. We owe it to the designer to kind of see their vision while at the same time making sure we're making a sellable product and something that would hit our vision as well. So it was the kind of thing where he was like, everyone I play with loves it this way. And it was like, we can't deny that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's in like 3 days, you know? So like, not only can we not deny it, we can't even prove it wrong. You know, I don't know how you prove everybody I play it with likes it, but you know, and it had tested well up until that point. So it wasn't like this was a common thing, but I think Jamie's point like hit a nerve for me where I was like, I think the bigger audience for this is the less, you know, aggressive crowd.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we made the decision to go with both. And I think that was the right decision. Because with solo games, like, and it wasn't solo, and I think it's a confusing decision is the solo play uses the backseat driver mode.
Yeah.
And it's a terminology thing where it just gets a little funky, where there's one piece of terminology that's used in 2 different ways. And I think all that is probably the biggest regret on any of it is just the way that it comes across in terminology is a little confusing. But as far as giving different levels of interaction, to me, isn't like a new game mode where it's like, hey, now we're going to set up this way, we're going to play this way or whatever. It's like, if you want to play a little more aggressive, add this.
Right.
So I kind of think of that almost similar to like, hey, you're playing a solo mode, you want a little harder, add this. So I think I'm open to things like that where it's not a mode, it's just a little note. Like it's a little extra
twist.
Note. Yeah, that doesn't like, my biggest thing with modes is somebody shares their play and it's like, hey, look how I did or whatever. And it's like, well, which one did you play? And then we got to get through the whole discussion to figure out there's like a baseline of where we can start the discussion after a bunch of questions are answered.
Right.
And I don't think like for a more aggressive play, add this does that problem for me. Like it doesn't invoke that, well, you know, which one did you play? And I don't play that one, so I don't care. And I'm uninterested, or I only play this one. So I think I'm up for that to a degree of like, here's a way you can twist their game. And I think one more that we did that with was Liberation, which is a 2-player asymmetrical game. And we offer in there, if somebody's really good, here's how you can knock them down a notch in setup. Like they draw 2 cards instead of 3, and it's going to kind of slow them down a little bit and kind of level out the asymmetry a bit. So I'm sort of comfortable with all those. We did pick one as the base one, and I think it's strong. It's an important, strong decision to say, here's what the base game is. And we went with the less aggressive as the base game.
That to me is really fascinating. That it,
that's.
I would have assumed it was, you know, one. If one was added late, it was backseat driver. But it's the other way.
And I really leaned on what I thought the wider audience for this would be, which was a very much a gut feeling. But knowing our audience, you know, and having a little bit of experience with that, but it also. I think it's better to be additive than remove. So like, here's how you play the one, but remove this for whatever game. And I think not even having to read those rules ever. And then here's how you add one more thing. Just, I think less rules is better as a whole as well. So just here's a rule you can add that changes things. And I think it's good that it has both because of that. It's a small little note twist that hits Kevin's audience and everybody since then that likes that kind of game, and then hits Jamie's audience and everybody like that that likes that kind of game. And it doesn't feel like it's a short rule set, so it doesn't feel like offensively, you know, large or complex or anything like that. It's just a little note in here.
And like you said, it doesn't change anything at setup. It's not deal out 3 cards to this person. It's just like literally like, hey, now you can do this.
Yeah, it's a third of a panel.
It's very easy to implement.
If you really, it's funny how we wrote it. if you want to really press your luck and give up a little control, try out this variant, which is very thematic. But When a
Yeah.
player travels in this variant, they may choose to add the face-up card to their opponent's journey instead of their own. When checking for busting, check to see if either player busts.
Yeah.
So it ramps things up, it speeds things up, and it does. It has a cool name. I don't remember who came up with the name, but I'll take credit. I don't know.
That person deserves a raise. I don't
I
know
don't
who it
know.
was.
I don't know. Thinking back, like I could probably look it up, but it would have been Kevin, myself, or Michael Lee, I assume. And maybe Mullins or someone that was just kind of like a little sounding board for us at the time.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So many ideas just kind of get bounced around, and
Exactly.
it's
raises for everybody.
Yeah, I like that too. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I think the points that you're making are all valid. But it is a fascinating. I feel like everybody has like a really strong preference, and maybe that's just me.
Yeah,
because I like playing it a little bit more
and
casual, relaxed.
Probably why it didn't get developed out because of time, but why it might not get developed out is because it is very opposing, sides of something. So it's not like you can like meet in the middle on that. Like there is like you're either multiplayer solitaire or competing. You're either playing against each other without bothering each other, or playing against each other and bothering each other.
Yes.
So there's no middle ground. It was pick one or offer both, and the most comfortable thing was to offer both, with the time, with honoring Kevin's thoughts on it, and trying to accomplish ours as well.
And it would have been tricky, I think, having the solo mode use those rules. Then you have to like reapproach that, and whether it's worth it to keep them in there.
And it was. I mean, for solo, it's like a necessary part of it. Like you just need every solo needs some opposition, so it makes sense. And to offer that only in the solo and not in the 2-player was where we were finding the most, like not so much disagreement, but like we were at opposite ends. Was just like, if it's in solo, like it's the thing that I like in the main game, and to have that not available for 2 players was kind of not fully representing things. So it worked out in the end. It's just it is unusual for us, but I wouldn't discount it as a little, here's a way to ramp things up. But what I hate in games is when it's like go to page 2 for the multiplayer rules, go to page 3 for the co-op rules, go to page 4 for the big boss mode rules, go to page 5 for the capture the flag rules. And like instead it's just like, how do I play the game? Just tell me how to play the game.
I just want to play. And there's like a certain memory element of like, I don't remember how to. Each time you come back to it, it's more burdensome to get started.
And how do you make a co-op and a competitive game all in one? Like it's one or the other. Like release the co-op later as like its own thing, where you can really like, everyone's played it, they've gotten used to it. We kind of figured out all these little cool spots, and now we want to figure out how could we work together if we did this or whatever. That's my thought on it. I just think it's daunting to open a rule book with all of that. So we've avoided it on all cases. If a submission comes in with that, sometimes I just say, no, I'm not even bothering because I don't even know where to start. But sometimes we'll say, we're just going to pick the one we like the most and remove all the rest. And in a few rare instances, we've put more than one in.
And I mean, I know you and I have talked a lot about like clarity of intent. Like, where is the game best? Do that. Don't do everything. Sometimes like forks are not good for, slicing bread, but they're real good at, picking up food to eat. Like it's a game is a type of tool sometimes that, it's better to, I mean, yes, everybody wants their game to be a Swiss Army knife, but like a fork is really good.
There are so many games out there that are going to do, you have 5 different things. You're not going to do all 5 of them best. Like pick the one that you do best and your mode that's an okay version of your game that probably would be better as a separate game, and and
Yes.
lean into all those things. Like, you've got this really good competitive game. Like, it's not going to compete in the co-op world. So like, not like why dabble, but like, why dabble? Like, why waste the time when like it's not where the game does best?
Yeah, and there's a thing I think about often is the first time somebody plays this, are they getting the best experience or the worst?
Oh, it's good.
And
Yeah.
if you say, okay, well, it's got good competitive rules, but the co-op rules are a little shaky, somebody who sits down thinking this is going to be a great co-op game is disappointed.
I'll tell you where that's come up recently. It was Arcs. Like, Arcs is sort of like objectively great. Like, across the board, people love Arcs, like Arcs, whatever. But a lot of people went into it playing the campaign first. And
Oh, sure.
it says like play like 3 games of the base game before you add all the campaign stuff. And people like played the campaign first because they're like, I'm a smart board gamer. I don't need to do the tutorial mode or whatever, which is barely a tutorial mode. It's a incredibly big game on its own.
Right.
Um, and then they were just like, oh, I don't like it. And like, some of it is, I don't like it because it's not the right game for me or whatever. But some of it is like, it was too much at once.
Yeah,
and there was like
absolutely.
a reason for it. So I think there are times where that really can show and can kind of break that for players. I think, player count is another strong one for me. It's like, if your game is great at 2 to 4 and at 5 it's slow as ever, but you want to make it a 5-player game just to sell more of them, you're going to sell more of a bad product where people are going to play it at 5 because that's what they wanted, and it's not as good. And we've experienced that at Button Shy, where we've added player counts that we weren't 100% sure about. And in all the years since, it's just narrowed this down to the best it can be. Like, we want, if 2-player only is right for it, it's a 2-player only game that's great, as opposed to a 2 to 4 player game where at 4 players you have half the amount of cards, half the amount of decisions, and it's just like, what's the point? So I think with everything, it's whittle it down to the best it possibly can be. And with Death Valley, there's a little extra note.
Yeah, and it's not bad. It's not overwhelming. It doesn't detract from the game. I think, if anything, it improves the game to have both. Which is why I asked
play style more than like functionality.
It is,
right? Like there's no functionality like lost or gained. It's just simply play style.
Yeah, and for the people that like that, like it's a huge boost. Like, I've heard multiple stories of people being like, I tried it, it was okay, and then we tried it with Backseat Driver and loved it. It's for the people that like that. It takes a good game and makes it amazing.
And it's funny for me, like, I will play this. It depends on who I'm playing with, because like I'll play anything. Like, to me, like, I don't have a personal preference of the two. It's who I'm playing against where I prefer it. Like, if I'm playing it with my kids or my family, I'll play the let me teach you. Let's not have any interaction like that. We could, what you do bad is your choice of pushing your luck too far or whatever, but it's not my whatever. But if I'm playing against my brother, for example, it's like Backseat Driver all the way, and I am sending you all the junk.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's the entire, like, my entire goal of the game. I don't care about anything else. So I do think that, like, I'm the kind of one where, like, I can find the best in both. I'm not going to, I probably would lean more towards just figuring out my own thing and not dealing with anybody else. But if I'm playing against the right people, I will completely change my goals and adapt and be okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see that being a very valid approach to it too. My regular gaming partners, they don't like take that stuff. So we just
like,
have never played that way.
like the way I'll play Ticket to Ride against him is first thing I get is whatever spot only has one train, and whether I need it or not, I'm just blocking that. Like first move of the game is just coming out like that. So I wouldn't do that if I was playing anybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just. I think there is something to be said about the group or the duo or whatever, as opposed to even just the person who purchases it or whatever. There are times where you might play it certain ways with different people.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned things, like you mentioned earlier, the casual audience. You also mentioned teaching. When you're teaching the game, it's a lot less fun to mess with somebody who doesn't know the game well.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But if the two of you have played it 20 times,
you
like
might start to
messing with
introduce
each other
that is an
going
interesting
to be
thing.
great.
Is it might be something that comes out after multiple plays. Like you've played this game 20 times, and it's like, oh, we've never tried that mode. We've sort of mastered it. Now it's like a little new thing to figure out. I haven't thought of it that way. As like it's like bonus content in a degree.
In a way, yeah, it is.
Like you've got the game, you played it a bunch. Now I've got this little extra thing we can try.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's such a simple rules twist that it's so easy to add at any point, whenever you're comfortable. If you want to start with it, great. If you want to wait 20 games, great. If you never want to add it because you don't like that style of game, great. Yeah, it's a cool thing. It's a nice little
cool.
easy thing with a great name. And I love that.
I'm Kevin Ellenburg, designer of Death Valley, discussing the development of the game after it was signed. Something else that changed during the development is the Backseat driver rules becoming a variant rule set. The original game was the Backseat driver rules, but when Button Shy opened up the playtesting to their network, they found that some players didn't really appreciate the cutthroat nature of the Backseat driver rules, where you can give a card to your opponent and that can make them bust right away. They also found that it plays surprisingly well without those rules to give cards to your opponent. So I then playtested both ways of playing a bunch, and then just made one small change that improved both ways, but especially improved the now standard friendlier rules. That change was making it so that the game ends when one card is left in the desert instead of when 0 cards are left in the desert. And that helped avoid situations where maybe this one last card is left, but neither player wants to take it. And also helped the push your luck elements be more interesting. Because yes, maybe there are 6 heat cards in the deck, and maybe you have 2 of them right now, but there's a chance that 6th heat card is going to be the one card nobody ends up taking. Nowadays, I play the friendlier official rules of the game more often than Backseat Driver. But when I was designing highs and lows, I intentionally included meaner cards that interact with both players, so that you can have more busting and excitement in your games, even if you aren't using the Backseat Driver rules.
So as far as Death Valley goes, we've actually talked quite a bit about the development process, the art process, but is there anything else that jumps out to you about Death Valley's history, the process of signing it? You could talk about that real-life location challenge. Anything that sticks out?
That's probably the most interesting thing is the real-life location challenge was we did 18 card challenges, which was just a way of, let's give a little restriction and have people make a game based on it. We started out with 18 cards, but all cards must be identical, which was just wild. And did a couple more, and eventually, like our 3rd or 4th one was design a game as 18 cards, but based on a real life location. It was the first, I believe, in that group that wasn't mechanically restrictive. Mm-hmm. So it was just wide open, and it was the coolest out of all of them. And I think because when people were trying to make a game with 18 cards and they're all, identical cards, like the best ideas come out of it, but not the best games, if that makes sense. Like real clever, like use of cards doesn't always translate to like tangible product, or sellable product or whatever. And then the next one was like games you can play while waiting in line, which is fine, and but it's mostly sort of mechanical. You gotta keep cards in your hands and things like that. But then when we did this one, we got a lot of really cool submissions, and like Skulls of Sad Lake was like not even the winner. It was a top 3, and I believe Death Valley was a top 3. And I wish I could remember what the third one was.
Was it Cortisa by any chance? Because I think
No,
that
that was
one
in the
also
worker
got.
placement challenge, but could have
Oh,
been
that's
but
right.
it could have been in
But it could have
the
been
real
in
life
real
location
life.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it entered that challenge. It was a really cool real life location that I think is really interesting and mechanical by name. Like it's just like some things, just like you just think Death Valley. It's like okay, it's got resistance and threat right in the title. So
Yeah.
like it has that opposing element that you need in all types of stories that you're trying to tell, I guess, right there in the title. So we signed it pretty much right after that, and then got to work with Kevin. Got to finally meet Kevin at ShyCon, which was
Oh
cool.
yeah.
ShyCon Nashville was the first time I got to meet him, which was well after the game was signed and
Yeah.
published. And that's probably about it. Like it was a pretty standard path of signing, testing, publishing. Kevin did a lot of the heavy lifting on the theming and the writing, and had a million cards. I swear, like when we first signed it, there were the original cards and probably 3 full expansions worth of cards, and still has expansions that we haven't published. We did publish a full sequel, Death Valley Highs and Lows, and there's still more cards. Like he just found the way to get this system to work and
Wow.
just keep adding to it. And it's always cool to see that. And there's still more. I think there's still more that we haven't done. So
Wow. I mean, and it's wild because it is so clean and elegant. And there's a certain point where it starts to feel like, well, what could we even add to this? And it's awesome to hear how much more he
well,
has. Like that's
yeah,
really
it's
impressive.
like it is a quite like locked system too, because the cards require their certain amount of cards to be in play. So there has to
Hmm.
be 4 animal cards or 3 animal cards, because it's written on the card. It tells you the
Hmm.
odds of that being in there. So the system requires the 18 card deck and nothing else. Unless you made cards that were not part of those, for example, something
Sure.
that sat alongside or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he's found really interesting ways to introduce. We have the skull icons that introduce negatives that came in the sequel, um, and there's more. I mean, he's always had so much of it, and I just love when he sends one over just to see all the new locations that like I know nothing about, never
Yeah.
been there. It sounds like too much work. I don't think I'll ever be there. But I love to watch from New Jersey and like look at these images and read about
Yeah. Which again, I mean, that's part of the appeal of these real life locations, and this one in particular. And again, I think it speaks to the art as well. Like it
yeah.
just evokes this place that so many people will never get a chance to see
I think
in
this
this
is the game that we
beautiful
get the
way.
most requests for art prints. Like that's a
Yes.
people ask for like prints of our games occasionally, but I would say the majority of those are for Death Valley.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it. And again, it's this sort of that mix of like real world, but with that fantastical, impressionistic element
Yep,
to the art, to the gameplay, everything. It just really all works together to make an incredibly cool game. Um,
agree.
if someone had only played Death Valley, this was their first Button Shy game that they ever had, what would you recommend next?
So it's interesting. I did think about this, and I think I would introduce. I would say Stew, which is
Yeah.
like the other game that has the same 2 modes of play, but it is like our most, I guess it's not our most pure press your luck game. Smoke and Mirrors might be the most pure, like, bluffing and press your
Yeah.
luck game, because it's just numbers and that's it. But Stew has theme. It has like nice art, like painterly style art. But to me, it's that I think it is that, like, numbers game. Like, you know, the whole thing of Death Valley is, I know there's X amount of water out there, and
Yeah.
you know, I can get all these cool things going if I you know, avoid too much water. Stew is not even close to that with engine building and things like that, but I do feel like the same players would kind of enjoy both. Just a little bit of like crunching numbers to figure out if I can put this in and if I can call Stew, if I can mess with people. It has definitely messed with people by covering an animal with a different type of ingredient or putting a stone in there or whatever it is. It's just messing with other people's heads, which is more similar to the backseat driver variant than anything else. But I think that's one that I would suggest. It's not a, you know, play one and then definitely have to play the other. But I think they just share some similar notes.
Yeah. They're both different takes on that kind of push your luck timing element. I think Stew is more bluffing.
It's more bluffing. It's a little more party.
It's a little bit more interacting with other people.
For sure.
Whereas Death Valley is a little bit more optimizing your own setup. And especially like timing how you do certain things. And Stew was on my list for sure. But I ended up coming
I have a guess of what yours might be.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Are you going to say Tassimasi?
So it's so funny. Stew was on my list, and then as we were talking today, I was like, wow, this really does share a lot of DNA with Tassimasi in this weird way.
Did you pick that?
That's one of my choices. I have two.
Okay.
So
because I think it does I think it does share a lot with Tassimasi, and from the sales mindset of, I don't think this should be too aggressive against the other player. Tassimasi was in those thoughts where I think the same person would probably want to play both games. And I think, you know, Tassimasi has definite interaction, but it's not aggressive interaction. Like, I'm not impacting the things you do. I'm just manipulating things to where you make your own choice. So that was one I thought you were going to say. What were you going to say?
For sure. And to add, you know, the thing that I was really thinking about as we were sitting here today is, you know, you mentioned the ability text and how this is sort of longer ability text, but it's all really focused. It is basically either here's a cool thing you can do, or here's how you change scoring. And Tassimasi has that same kind of clean focus. It's not, okay, if you have 2 flowers of this type and 1 flower of this type, then you can draw an extra you know, that's the kind of like long ability text that gets really problematic. But Tassimasi is very,
I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, you know, the minute you start getting into these weird, you know, conditional situations and stuff. But Tassimasi is so clean in the same way that Death Valley is, of like, either you get a cool effect or you get more points, and that's it. And that's really all you have to think about. So even if the text is long, it feels very simple, very chunky, easy to get. And again, like, the art style has that kind of nice painterly quality to it. I can see that being one.
Yeah.
My other suggestion, though, is going more thematic with Desert Pack.
Interesting.
Which is you know, again, like, the art's kind of there.
Has a similar palette.
It's a similar palette.
Very limited palette.
So if you're looking for, like, you know, talking about how meaningful the art was, Desert Pack kind of feels like it slides into that conversation a little bit.
It's interesting. And when Desert Pack comes, I will share. But Desert Pack had different art before we settled on that art. We had an artist do the whole game. I mean, the whole game is just the front and back of a card.
Yeah.
But then we redid it. And oh my God, I can't even remember what the first one looked like, but I just know the second one came together exactly like as we wanted it.
Nice.
But it was important in setting that tone. And that one is deduction more than, press your luck or anything.
Yeah,
But,
it moves away from the gameplay a little bit, but it has the same, because so many people love the art or love the the setting, love the
I don't think they
idea
came
of
out
it.
that far apart from each other either.
I don't think so.
It was definitely a deserty time for us.
Well, and am I right in thinking that Desert Pack was in the Identical Cards Challenge?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it
so
the winner or?
No, it was the winner. It was top 3, and I don't know. I feel like it was the winner.
Okay.
But like these blend together because we published like 3 out of each, and sometimes we publish ones that aren't winners. So like I forget which one actually was the winner.
Yeah.
But Desert Pack was way up there. It may not have been the winner, but it was definitely up there.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. We can talk about it more when that episode
the winner
comes up,
I think was Interceptor.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Desert Pack is the one that, as I was thinking, I was like, yeah, if I wanted another desert themed game, like that's the one for sure. Yeah, I would definitely think of that thematically, more setting wise than mechanically.
Exactly.
But in a game like this, where the mechanics and the art are so so interwoven but appeal to different people, I feel like it's not a total cheat to have two answers.
The funny thing is, I think both of our second answer is the right one. I think Tussie Mussy is the absolute suggestion.
Yeah.
But I think we both kind of landed on something else for interesting reasons.
Yeah, and I think honestly, you're not going to go wrong recommending Tussie Mussy anytime.
Sure.
Like
exactly.
it's a high caliber game and one that most people like, I think. But some of these other, like Stew is a much loved game. Desert Pack is, I think, really evocative in its own way too.
That's like a little hidden one here.
It's
like
more of a niche.
Snuck its way out, and
yeah.
I don't know if it was like a low print run, but it definitely like snuck its way out there.
Yeah. So, if you want to take people into the, sort of off-road, so to speak, that's kind of one in the background.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking about Death Valley with me today. It's a pleasure as always. And we'll catch you next time.
See y'all.